Why is it that just when you feel something good is about to happen, everything starts to fall apart? Maybe you're not being abandoned, but being prepared. And the current trial may be heaven's message that your breakthrough is closer than you think. You think you're being delayed, but maybe you're being refined. And what you're praying for may not be denied, but is being purified in the fire of trials to make it more worthy than ever. Have you ever felt like you were standing on the edge of something great? As if just one more step would take you to a door that could completely change your life. But then unexpectedly everything begins to collapse. What you hoped for suddenly seems out of reach. The door that seemed open now slams shut. And in that moment of confusion, you might ask yourself, why is everything becoming harder right when I thought my breakthrough was coming? Maybe you prayed night after night, earnestly longing for a breakthrough, a single powerful change that would pull you out of everything that's been holding you back. You believed that if you prayed enough, with enough sincerity, God would intervene. But instead of things getting easier, life feels heavier and more chaotic than ever. You may have asked the familiar questions deep inside your heart. Is God even listening? Does He see me? Am I praying into empty space? My dear friend, let me remind you of this. It is precisely in those moments that seem the worst that God is doing something great that you cannot yet see. He is not silent because He is distant. He is silent because He is working. Sometimes God's silence is not a sign of His absence, but evidence that He is quietly preparing you for something far beyond what you've asked for. He not only hears your prayers, He is moving in ways greater than what you even dared to hope for. But in order to receive it, you must be prepared. And that preparation comes through trials. Understand this clearly. God does not test us because He doubts us. He doesn't need to examine you to know how strong you are. He knows that better than you know yourself. But often, it is we who don't recognize the strength we carry within. And so, in His mercy, He allows challenges to come anew to defeat you, but to reveal the true potential that lies dormant inside of you. Trials are the process of refinement, a place where faith is stretched, hearts are trained, and character is shaped. If you're walking through a difficult season right now, it might not be random. You could be right in the middle of a divine preparation process, one that God is using to make you steady and mature enough to receive the breakthrough you've been praying for. You may be wondering, then what are the signs that I'm being tested by God? How do you know you're not just facing trouble, but are truly part of a heavenly plan in progress? One of the clearest signs is when you face opposition on every front. Every effort seems futile. You feel like you're pushing a heavy rock uphill, and the moment you loosen your grip, it rolls back down. The doors you try to open mysteriously shut, and the path ahead is filled with barriers. But that is not failure. That is where faith is born. When things don't go according to plan, you can either choose to surrender or choose to trust. God is teaching you perseverance. He is showing you how to keep walking, even when everything inside you wants to stop, because He knows that at the appointed time, you will step into the land of victory, and the resistance you face today will become nothing more than a memory of your growth. The next sign could be a feeling of disconnection from the things that once brought you joy. Relationships that used to comfort you now feel distant, even painful. Things that once made you happy no longer satisfy. Suddenly you feel separated, as if a part of your old world is slowly drifting away. This separation is not punishment, it is preparation. God is clearing out space in your heart to pour in something new, something greater, and more glorious than what you've ever known. He is removing what was once useful in the old season, but no longer fits the one that is coming. The truth is, to step into something new, you often have to leave your comfort zone. And though that can be painful, it is part of God's plan. He will never call you out if He doesn't have something better waiting for you. If you're feeling shaken inside, if you're standing between resistance and loneliness, perhaps you are being shaped. Perhaps you're being refined in the fire, not to be burned, but to emerge pure like gold. And it is in those very moments, even in pain and uncertainty, that you are closer than ever to the breakthrough you've been praying for. And then you'll realize that trials are not what break you down. They are what raise you up. Trials don't only come through opposition or separation. Sometimes they sneak into the deepest places of your heart, places you never expected your faith itself. Have you ever experienced this? When everything you once believed starts to feel blurry. When questions you thought you'd never ask suddenly flood your mind. Why is this happening to me? Is God really with me? Doubt, like a thin fog, begins to cloud your mind, dimming the once bright light of your faith. But even when your faith feels shaken, remember that God is still working. He is not distant because of your doubts. He is not angry when you feel confused. In fact, He uses these exact moments to strengthen you. This is the time when you must make a choice to keep trusting Him, even when you don't understand. Because real faith does not rest in understanding everything. It rests in choosing to believe in God even when everything around you feels uncertain. You see, anyone can believe when life is going smoothly, when prayers are answered, when doors open easily, and when joy comes regularly. But what about when everything feels fragile? When you can't see the end? When uncertainty is the only thing you can be sure of? It is in those moments that God is measuring the depth of your faith. Will you keep walking? Will you reach for His hand when you can no longer see the path? Another sign that you are being tested is the feeling of isolation, as if everyone has pulled away. Friends no longer reach out. Family seems busy with their own lives. You feel like you're walking alone, carrying weights that you should have someone to share with. But don't let that loneliness convince you that you've been abandoned. Sometimes God allows human support to withdraw, not to leave you empty, but to show you that He alone is enough. He is inviting you to rely on Him not as a last resort, but as your first and only choice. And you know what? It is often in the silence of loneliness that you hear God's voice the clearest. That is not distance. That is real closeness. He wants you to learn how to stand when no one else is holding you up, to know that even when no one else is beside you, He is still there. Not just beside you, but within you. His love has never left you. And sometimes only in that stillness do you realize how close He truly is. Then there are moments when trials don't come through loss or doubt, but through delay. You've prayed. You've tried your best. You've lived faithfully, worked hard, and done what's right. But instead of receiving what you've been waiting for, all you see is time passing and your prayers met with silence. The door remains closed. The dream still feels distant. That delay might discourage you. But remember, God's timing is always perfect. What you perceive as a delay may actually be the time when everything is being divinely arranged behind the scenes. You cannot see it, but He is working. He is moving people, situations, and opportunities into place. And when the time comes, everything will unfold so quickly that you'll realize none of the waiting was in vain. It was preparation. And the result will make you grateful for every step of the journey you've endured. But what's even more surprising is that sometimes God tests you in a very different way. It's when you, even in the midst of your own struggles, feel a burden in your heart, the desire to become a blessing to others. Not because you have plenty, but because God is stirring within you a divine generosity. You might be exhausted, lacking, wondering how you'll even make it through the day, yet an opportunity arises. A friend needs help. A stranger needs encouragement. A situation calls for support. And suddenly, something inside you nudges. Give. Offer something, even if it's just a little. This is not a test of what you possess. It's a test of your heart. God is asking you, when you are empty, can you still love? When you are hurting, can you still bless? He is teaching you that what matters most is not what's in your hand, but what's in your heart. And in those very moments when you give even just a little, you will see Him multiply what you have. The blessing doesn't come after abundance. The blessing comes when you are willing. Then there is one final kind of test that many people overlook. It's when God calls you to take a step of faith into the unknown. No map, no clear instructions, no guarantee of what lies ahead. Just a strong stirring in your spirit saying, go, do this. It might be a career change, a move to a new place, the beginning of a new journey, or a decision you never imagined you'd make. It may be frightening. It may leave you uncertain, but you feel it clear God is calling you to move. And when you obey, when you step out in faith, that's when you position yourself to receive the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Faith is not about knowing the outcome. Faith is stepping forward even when you cannot see the whole path, because you trust the one who is leading. We've just talked about obedience and faith, and how those brave steps, even in the fog, are what lead to breakthrough. So what happens after you choose to trust? After you say yes to God, even while your heart is still full of questions? Often what comes next is not a blinding light or an instant miracle. It's a process, a refining journey, a season known as testing. You might feel afraid, not just because you don't know what's ahead, but because you can sense that everything around you is changing. And it's in those moments, even when you cannot see the full picture, that you are being placed exactly where you need to be to receive the answer you've long prayed for. Dear friend, faith doesn't require you to know the ending. Faith is walking forward, believing that each step is held by God. It's choosing to obey even when you don't understand. And that is what sets you apart. That is what opens the door to breakthrough. All the signs you've experienced, opposition, separation, confusion, have one thing in common. They lead to growth. You're not just going through a series of events. You are being shaped into a whole new person. Someone deeper, stronger, more grounded in faith. God is molding you. He's not in a rush. He's not in a hurry. He is patiently refining you through every circumstance, every moment of pain, and every time you choose to rise instead of quit. And it is those very things that are preparing you to step into the higher purpose He has set for your life. Remember, this testing is not the end of your story. It is not where you stop. Testing is the tool God uses to lead you to the ending. He's already written a life of victory, of purpose, and most of all, a life that brings glory to Him. If you're in the midst of a trial right now, please don't give up. Even if everything feels chaotic, even if your emotions feel depleted, you are not alone. God is with you. He has not turned His back. His silence is not a sign of indifference. He is preparing you, and what He is preparing will exceed everything you've ever hoped for. Keep trusting, keep praying, keep walking one day at a time, even if the steps are small, because your breakthrough is on the way. And when it arrives, you'll realize that every tear, every silent prayer was never wasted. Keep your eyes fixed ahead, because God is faithful. He will not abandon you, never. There are moments when trials seem to drag on endlessly. You look around, but every turn seems to lead to a dead end. You pray, but it feels like the heavens are silent. In those dark moments, it's essential to hold on to one unshakable truth. God is still there. Even when you feel like you're walking through the darkest valley, He walks with you. We often don't recognize God's presence when everything feels messy. Circumstances can cloud our spiritual vision. But if you could see beyond what your eyes perceive, you'd see His hand guiding every step, clearing the path for the breakthrough ahead. His plan is always greater, deeper, and more secure than anything you could imagine. And sometimes trials come just so you can learn to trust Him without needing all the answers. There is a profound truth hidden within every trial. God doesn't bring you into hardship to punish you. He brings you there to transform you, to make you more like Christ, because what He cares about isn't just what you do, but who you are becoming. However, this transformation cannot happen unless you are willing to let go. Let go of your own plans. Let go of your own timeline. Let go of the need to understand everything. You must learn to believe that His ways are higher than yours, broader, deeper, and far more beautiful. The potter never abandons the clay halfway through. He shapes, presses, bends, molds, and sometimes even places it in the fire, but not to destroy it, rather to bring forth a new form, stronger, more beautiful, and more enduring. That's exactly what God is doing with you. One of the hardest trials to endure is when you must suffer without an explanation. When you've prayed, believed, and trusted, yet nothing seems to change. You remain in the same place, battling the same pain, and quietly you begin to wonder, God, have you forgotten me? But no, He has not forgotten you. His silence is not a sign of neglect. He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for your good in ways you cannot yet see. That is the very moment your faith is being refined. When you have no answers but still choose to believe. When you see nothing but keep walking anyway. And in time you'll discover that every step was remembered. No step was meaningless. No prayer was ignored. There are also times when God tests us through our deepest losses, losing a loved one, losing a dream, losing something that once felt like your very heart. In those overwhelming moments, it's easy to choke on the pain. You may find yourself asking, why me? Why this? But even in loss, God is there. He does not withdraw from your pain. He steps into it. He suffers with you. He holds you when you cry, and He promises to be near to the brokenhearted. No one understands your pain better than He does. You may not understand the reason, but you can trust His love, because He has never abandoned you. And it is in the very midst of pain that His love becomes most visible. He will take your ashes and craft something beautiful. He will turn your sorrow into strength. And through it all, you'll realize the true breakthrough isn't just about surviving circumstances, but becoming someone you never imagined you could be. We've already identified the signs that God may be testing you, from resistance and separation to seasons of loneliness. But trials don't stop there. Sometimes we are called to walk into places of deep sorrow where our hearts are torn open only to be rebuilt by the comfort that comes from heaven. Pain is always difficult to understand. It arrives without warning and often offers no explanation. But one thing always remains true. No matter how fierce the pain, God's promises are unshakable. He will never abandon us. He will bring beauty out of the ruins in your soul. God doesn't allow us to walk through the darkest valleys because He delights in our suffering. On the contrary, He uses those valleys to purify and refine our hearts. In brokenness, we learn compassion. In tears, we learn mercy. And in helplessness, we learn how to rely on the power of the Almighty. There are things you will never truly understand until you have fallen and been lifted up by Him. It is in those moments of despair that your relationship with God transforms from theory into a living experience. Your dependence on Him becomes deeper, more real than ever before. And you begin to feel a gentle supernatural comfort that only He can give. Trials do not only touch our emotions, they test our character. There are times when God allows us to face situations that force us to choose, to hold on to integrity or compromise, to stay patient or lash out in anger, to love or to surrender to bitterness. And that is where God begins to shape us from the inside out. It is easy to love when people treat you kindly, but when you are misunderstood, hurt, or betrayed, that is the true test. In those moments, God invites you to respond not with your human instincts, but with grace. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because God forgave you first. You choose love not because it is easy, but because you are being transformed to become more like Christ. This world is full of brokenness, and God is calling you to be a light in the midst of it. Through every trial, He is teaching you how to be led not by emotion, but by the Holy Spirit. You learn to pray for those who hurt you, to extend grace without expecting anything in return. And as you walk through those tests, you will realize that you have changed. Not because your circumstances improved, but because your heart has been refined. You become stronger, deeper, and more ready to receive the blessings you once were not mature enough to hold. It is not only your inner life that is tested. External challenges are also part of the spiritual process God allows. There will be times when you face broken relationships, financial pressure, or sudden illness. These things can push you to the edge of what you can endure, but they are not random misfortunes. They are divine tests, crafted to teach you how to place your trust in the Creator rather than in your own strength. When you have done all you can and still cannot control the outcome, that is when God steps in. He enters the chaos and gives you what you could never find on your own: peace in the storm, strength when you are exhausted, and hope when every door seems to have slammed shut. These hardships are a reminder that you are not in control. And it is in those very moments that God's power is revealed. When you reach your limit, God does not just lift you up. He empowers you to walk stronger than before. He is faithful in His provision. He knows every need, every silent prayer, and He will never abandon you in your time of trouble. In the process, you learn to rely completely on Him. Not because you have no other option, but because you've discovered that without Him you can do nothing. But with Him, all things are possible. Remember this: trials do not come to destroy you. They come to prepare you for something greater. You may not recognize it while you're in the middle of it, But one day when you look back, you will understand that every tear, every moment of confusion, every sigh carried purpose. Nothing is meaningless in the hands of God. Refinement is always challenging, but it is the only road to true maturity. And when you look back over your journey, you will see that God never left your side. He walked with you every step of the way. He was your refuge when the storms came, your strength when you had nothing left to hold on to, your ever-present help in times of trouble. There will be times when you feel completely drained. You will want to give up, but it is in those very moments that you can call upon Him, and He will answer. He promises to lift you up and give you the strength you need to keep going. His grace is sufficient for you, even in your weakest moments. And when you think you've reached the end of the road, God will take your hand. He will lead you through, guiding you into what you've only dared to hope for in silence. Because trials are not the end. They are simply a part of a much greater journey, one that leads you to the breakthrough you've been praying for all along. When you begin to understand that separation, resistance, or even loneliness can be signs that God is preparing you for something new, you'll find a sense of peace even as you walk through the fire. Still, there will be moments when you can't help but ask, why? Why do I have to go through all of this? The truth is, there are things in life we simply can't comprehend in the moment they happen. But one thing you can be completely certain of is this: God is working all things together for your good. He doesn't allow things to happen randomly. He hasn't withdrawn. He hasn't forgotten you. He is faithful, and He will bring you through. Then at just the right time, you will begin to see His promises unfold. Not just the things you once wished for, but blessings beyond what you ever imagined. A breakthrough that exceeds expectations, arriving right on time in the most powerful way. So if you find yourself in the middle of a season of testing, don't be discouraged. Remember that God is still right there, beside you. He hasn't turned His back, nor is He indifferent to your pain. He is using this very moment of hardship to prepare you for something greater. Keep your head held high, keep trusting, and keep walking with steadfast faith. Your breakthrough is drawing near, and when it comes, you will no longer be who you were. You will be stronger, more faithful, and more ready than ever to walk in the purpose God has prepared for your life. We often ask in times of adversity, why now? Why is this so hard? Those questions are real. When life turns upside down, when the weight on your shoulders becomes unbearable, it's natural to feel doubt and hesitate, especially when you don't understand what's happening or why God would allow it. But don't forget this one truth: God's testing is never meaningless. Even if you don't yet see the reason, even if you haven't uncovered the meaning, there is still a greater plan being prepared. Every trial is a divine invitation to grow, to move closer to the person He's called you to become. Just as gold must pass through fire to be purified, you too must go through refining to become who God intended you to be. The hardships are not meant to break you, but to strengthen you. They are tools God uses to build your faith, shape your character, and prepare you for the blessings that lie ahead. And remember this: even when you feel like you're walking alone, God is still there. You may not hear Him, you may not feel His presence clearly, but He is there, not abandoning you, not giving up on you. When you are worn out from carrying too much, when your soul feels crushed under the weight of life, it is in those very moments that God is inviting you to come to Him. He is your safe refuge, your solid rock in the storm, your fortress that shields you through every season of adversity. He gives peace, not a peace that comes from circumstances, but a peace that surpasses all understanding. He gives strength so you can keep standing, courage so you won't fall, and hope so you won't stop moving forward. God does not test you because He wants to see you suffer. He tests you to refine you, to bring out the very best in you. When life is easy, we often forget Him and rely on ourselves. But when the storms come, we realize how deeply we need Him. And it is through those very trials that we learn the greatest lesson of all: to fully depend on Him. In the midst of the trial, you'll find yourself at a crossroads. One path leads to faith, the other to surrender. You can choose to trust God even without understanding what's happening, or you can turn away, give up, and let the doubts carry you away. But if you choose to hold on to your faith, if you keep walking with the belief that God's plan is greater than any challenge, then you will be led through. The process of refinement is never comfortable. It is painful, uncertain, and sometimes leaves you utterly exhausted. But just like a caterpillar must struggle inside its cocoon to become a butterfly, you too must go through trials to be fully transformed in God's divine plan. These challenges can sometimes drain your strength. There are days you may want to give up. But remember, it is precisely in these moments that God is doing something profound. Every time you choose not to quit, every step you take forward is another brick laid on the path to your breakthrough. One of the hardest parts about going through trials is the feeling of uncertainty. You don't know what lies ahead. Everything seems blurry and tangled. Fear and anxiety begin to creep in. But the Bible teaches us that the righteous shall live by faith, not by sight. Even when you cannot see the road, you can trust that He is holding your hand and leading you. You don't need to see all the steps. You just need to take the first one and trust. Because He has a plan for your life, and He is working all things together for your good. Sometimes what you call obstacles are actually preparation. God doesn't take you through trials to hold you back, but to help you discover something stronger that has always been within you. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You don't have to understand everything or see the whole path clearly. All you need to do is keep walking with a heart that trusts in God. Because it is He, not your circumstances, who defines the direction of your life. And sometimes God tests us by placing us in situations that seem impossible. Have you ever found yourself in a moment where everything felt too much to bear? The pressure was overwhelming, fear took root in your heart, and you felt like you were about to collapse? Maybe you even thought about giving up. But it is in those very moments of weakness at the end of your own strength that you encounter a power that does not come from you. When you hit rock bottom, He lifts you up. When you can no longer go on with your own strength, His power begins to move, and then something miraculous happens. In the midst of brokenness, you see His glory. In your weakness, you witness divine strength. You begin to realize that you are growing through the trial, being stretched in ways you never imagined. From what seemed like the end, a new beginning is born. You learn the lessons of perseverance, of courage, and of faith, not a theoretical faith, but a faith forged in fire. Because trials don't just reveal your weaknesses, they expose the truth of what lies within you, the values you hold, the beliefs you've built, the limits you've never dared to cross. Through it all, you begin to see who you truly are. And from that place, you are given the chance to grow, to become the person God intended you to be. He is refining you. He is shaping you to be more like Christ, not just in words, but in how you live. He teaches you to let go of what you've been clinging to, your personal plans, your expectations, your private dreams. One by one, He invites you to surrender them all, to step into a greater plan, His plan. And when you are willing to lay down what you thought was best, you begin to receive the very best that He has prepared for you since before you were born. You open your heart and surrender to His process. You no longer beg Him to change your circumstances, but instead begin to pray, Lord, change me in the midst of this. And that is when the extraordinary begins. The door to breakthrough opens, not because everything around you has changed, but because you have changed from within. The breakthrough you've been waiting for may not come immediately. It may not come in the way you expected. But when you remain faithful, when you continue to trust through the dry seasons, you will see the fruit of your obedience at the right time in the right way, and in a measure only God could accomplish. Because trials do not come to destroy you, they come to build you. Every tear you've cried, every night you've fallen to your knees, every time you chose to trust God instead of giving in to despair, none of it is in vain. Each one is a brick in the structure God is building within you, a structure that is strong, beautiful, and full of purpose. Breakthrough then is not just the final moment when everything turns out well, it is the whole journey. It is every step taken in faith. It is every time you choose to stand firm when it would have been easier to let go. It is the silent yet powerful transformation happening inside you, day after day. Looking back, you will realize that what you thought was a loss was actually a beginning. What seemed like bondage was in fact the very place where God was strengthening you. You will see clearly that no trial was meaningless. Every hardship was part of God's good plan to draw you closer to Him and nearer to the mission He has already prepared for you. And in that moment, the breakthrough becomes a living testimony of His faithfulness. Not just in the pleasant seasons, but especially in the hardest ones. He was there. He did not just help you survive. He helped you overcome, conquer, and grow. So if you are facing a challenge right now, do not think it is happening for no reason. God is using everything to shape you. Every pressure is molding your character. Every dead end is clearing a path to a better future. God never takes His eyes off you, not even for a second. He walks with you through every pain, every disappointment, every tear. He never leaves. His love does not change. And His promises are always on time. You may not understand the reasons for what you are going through, but you can trust that God is good, that His plans are perfect, and that He is using all things for your good. These are the signs that show God is testing you to prepare you for something greater. Now let's look deeper into that journey, because no matter how long the trial lasts, it is not the end. It is just the beginning of a story whose glorious ending is breakthrough. Sooner or later, the trials will fade. The battles you are facing will not last forever. They will give way to victory. Pain will turn into strength. And the things that once made you feel like you could not go on will become living proof of God's faithfulness in your life. Breakthrough does not come like a sudden gust of wind. It comes through the process of growth. Through every step of faith. Through every time you choose not to give up. God is not only the one who begins the work in you, He promises to complete it. As you continue to trust and walk with Him, even in uncertainty, you will see His plan unfold in ways beyond what you ever imagined. The breakthrough is coming. And when it does, it will be greater than anything you prayed for. But before it comes, you must remain faithful in the testing. That is the condition. True breakthrough is not an unexpected gift, but a reward for consistency. Believe that God is working all things for your good, even when you cannot yet see the result. There will be times when it feels like the trials will never end. Each day carries more weight. But remember, in the grand design of His eternal plan, these sorrows are temporary. They are part of a bigger journey where God is shaping you for something no one can take away. Those painful moments, though they break you, are stepping stones into a depth of spiritual maturity you have never known. Every trial, every fall brings you closer to the heart and nature of God. No pain is wasted. Every tear is poured into the process of inner transformation. And in those difficult seasons, you will learn the power of perseverance. Sometimes, perseverance is not about moving forward with strength. It is simply about not giving up. It is standing firm in the headwind. It is continuing to believe. Even when nothing around you offers certainty, God is not looking for perfection. He is looking for hearts that cling to Him in the storm. Because perseverance is not just a virtue. It is a spiritual weapon. It builds faith. And through that process, you learn to stop depending on your own strength and lean entirely on God's power. When you refuse to quit, even when you do not understand what is happening, you are stepping into the very position God has prepared for your breakthrough. Moreover, trials act as a mirror of the soul. They reveal weaknesses you might have ignored in easier times. It could be impatience, repressed anger, or a need to control everything. But in hardship, everything surfaces. And when you see them clearly, you have the chance to lay them on the altar, surrendering them to God and asking Him to change you from within. Sometimes, what God is working on is not your circumstances, but your heart. And that is just as important, because breakthrough is not just about outward change, it is about deep inner transformation. Another thing trials reveal is how you relate to others. Loving is easy when life is smooth. But when you are tired, betrayed, or misunderstood, love becomes a difficult choice. That is when relationships are tested. You may be called to forgive, to continue loving someone who does not love you back, to extend grace to someone who does not deserve it. But this is how God teaches you to love like He does, without conditions, without expecting anything in return. Simply because love is the nature of Christ in you. The tests in relationships are not meant to wound you, but to reveal your heart. They invite you to go deeper into humility, kindness, patience, and authentic love. And you will find that the most valuable lessons do not come when everyone agrees with you, but when you are challenged to love amid disagreement and hurt. In all of this, there is one thing you must never forget. Stay rooted in the Word of God. When everything is shaking, when you do not know where to turn, return to the Scriptures. His Word is where you will find encouragement, comfort, and guidance. When you feel like you cannot go on, it is His Word that will lift you up. You do not need to have all the answers. You only need one word from God. One reminder that He is still there, still working, and has not abandoned you. The more you stay in His Word, the stronger you become. The more you soak in truth, the less you are driven by emotion. That is how you stand firm in trials. So if you are going through a difficult season right now, do not let it fool you into thinking you are failing. You are not. You are being shaped. You are being prepared. God never allows a trial without a purpose. Every pain, every tear is a step closer to the breakthrough you have been praying for. Remember, He is not training you for today. He is preparing you for the future. And that future is far greater than anything you have ever dreamed.